Hey there. So in this video, I'm going to talk to you about the answers to the Property of Elements lab review sheet. If you want to look at the copy of the lab, you can click there next to the title. In class, when I first started going over this lab, I wrote all the data in. When you did this lab, you got 8 elements, and then you wrote the symbols down. As you can see here, it says symbol. And then we tested each of the substances for its luster, it's whether it was shiny or dull. Conductivity, we used a homemade conductivity meter that I made. A couple of wires attached to a light and a battery, and if the electricity passed through it, the light lit up. Malleability, you hit something with a hammer and decide whether it was malleable, whether it just bent but didn't break, or brittle, that it broke into little pieces. And then we added hydrochloric acid and copper 2 chloride to two samples of each substance, and if it reacted with one or both of them, we wrote it reacted, or we wrote the kind of reaction it did. Otherwise, if there's no reaction, I write no reaction, or N. It's important to know which of these characteristics is a physical property and which one of them are chemical properties. So remember that a physical property is one that can be observed without changing the substance, and a chemical property can only be observed by changing the substance. So, luster. To see something is shiny or dull, it will not change. So you're going to write physical. In order to put the conductivity meter to the substance, even if electrons are passing through it, it's not going to change. So, it's physical property. When you hit something with a hammer, it may flatten it, but the molecules, the particles inside are not changing. So that's also physical. But when you add something to do a chemical reaction, to see if it's reactive or not, that would be a chemical property. Okay, so we're going to sort the elements into 2 groups, and this is the part that you really have to know. You can see that some elements like zinc are all shiny, they're malleable, they are conductive, and they react with hydrochloric acid or copper 2 chloride. So that's what you have to write. Shiny, malleable, reactive with HCl and or copper 2 chloride, and it's conductive, right? And you'll see that this pattern repeats here and here and here and here. Oh, not that one, sorry, not sulfur. Sulfur is actually, carbon's the other kind, and that one. So all of those are group A, so I'm going to write an A here. Oh, not next to silicon. Aluminum. And iron and tin and zinc. Okay? Those are all in group A. And we call these elements metals. The ones that are dull and brittle and non-reactive with HCl and or copper 2 chloride, or are non-conductive, right? Those are sulfur and I'm not sure why that one's moving around, and carbon, right? You see those answers right there. You can see that silicon is actually a mix. It's shiny and conductive like group A, and it's brittle and not reactive like group B. So we call these guys non-metal, but we see that silicon is the exception to the rule. We can see that there is one element that is shiny and conductive like group A, and reactive and non-reactive, let's say non-reactive with HCl and copper 2 chloride, and brittle like group B. So anytime there's a mix, you call that some other name. Actually, And I just realized that we're not supposed to write metal and non-metal here. You have to write the elements down. So we write magnesium, zinc, let's see which other ones they are, tin, iron, and aluminum, right? And then, I don't know why it's dragging up that L. Okay, let me erase that guy. Okay, it disappeared. And the ones that have the characteristics are carbon and sulfur. Okay, so fill in the location of the elements on the blank periodic table. So we have Mg, I know, is right there. Fe is about right here, I believe. And aluminum is here. Carbon is right there. Actually, carbon is right there. Sulfur is right there. Let's see, we have tin, which is right in the same group as carbon, and zinc. So zinc is right here, and tin is right there. Silicon is right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so it says shade in the elements from group A. So I'm going to shade this in because these are the group A's. We're going to crosshatch group B. We're going to leave the other group alone. And the elements in group A are found. So you can see basically that we're separating the periodic table into two halves, and the separation is about right here. Now, the steps are actually incorrect on this blank periodic table. I apologize for giving you this incorrect periodic table here, where you can see that I'm drawing the steps in. The steps are not an official term, it's just they look like steps, so I call them steps. But to the left of the periodic table is what we call the metals. Left of the stairs, right, or the steps. And these are called metals. The elements in group B are to the right of the stairs. And they're called nonmetals. And the elements that are found in neither group are called metalloids. Right? Silicon is this exception. And they're found on or near the stairs. Number 5, what are the predicted characteristics of silver? So remember, silver is found about here somewhere on the periodic table. So if we switch over, we can see that silver is number 47. So we know that silver is a metal, so we know that it's shiny. We know that it's conductive. We know that it's malleable. And we know that it's reactive with HCl and or copper 2 chloride. Okay, so phosphorus is found around here on the periodic table. Again, if we take a look, we can see that phosphorus is right between silicon and sulfur. So it's actually right there. And that would make it a non-metal. So we would say it's dull. We would say it's non-conductive. We would say it's brittle. And we would say it's non-reactive with HCl and or copper 2 chloride. Now for antimony, look at antimony. Antimony is SB. We can see that antimony is number 51, and it's right next to the stairs. So we know if it's next to the stairs that it's going to be a metalloid. So the whole idea is that you pick characteristics that are a mix of the two, a mix of metal and non-metal characteristics. So it could be shiny and conductive, like metals are, and we could say brittle and non-reactive with HCl and or copper 2 chloride, and this would be like non-metals. It doesn't have to be 2 and 2. It could be 3 and 1. So on a multiple choice question, it would be very easy to figure out, okay, if I asked you for the characteristics of a non-metal, you would pick the choices that have a mix of between metal and non-metal characteristics. Okay, number 6, last one. How do you know that tearing a piece of paper is a physical change? Well, if you tear paper, the atoms that are in the paper, right, the arrangement of those atoms has not changed. So the arrangement of atoms is not changed inside the paper, inside the molecules in the paper. So the whole idea is that when you're tearing the paper, you're breaking apart some weak bonds that are holding the other molecules together. That's where it tears along. So it's not actually breaking any chemical bonds. Remember, so we haven't talked about this a lot yet, but a bond is a connection between two atoms, right? So next part of the question, how do you know that burning a piece of paper is a chemical reaction? So when we burn paper, those arrangements of the atoms is actually changing, right? The particles are rearranging. Or you can say the atoms in the particle are rearranging. Right? This is called a chemical reaction. So when you burn paper, you get carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen molecules coming off, mostly carbon dioxide and water, but living things also have some nitrogen and phosphorus and other atoms, and they're creating new particles. So there you go. There is the Property of Elements lab review. Please write down all the answers and complete at least 4 assignments in each week, and you can get extra credit for the next 2 weeks. Okay, thanks. Have a good day. Bye.